Did you know that some disasters have killed literally millions of people? We're talking about events so massive, they wiped out entire cities and reshaped the world. Today we're going to count down the 10 deadliest disasters ever recorded based on their real, devastating death tolls. This isn't just about numbers, it's about understanding the sheer power of nature and the incredible fragility of human life. We're going from number 10 all the way to the single most catastrophic event in recorded history, and some of these will absolutely shock you. Now before we jump in, it's super important to remember that behind every single number we mention are real people, families, communities, countless lives that were tragically cut short. We're going to be talking about unimaginable loss, so we'll be approaching this with the utmost respect for the victims and the survivors whose lives were changed forever. The goal here is to learn from the past and honor those who were lost. Kicking off our list at number 10 is the 2010 Haiti earthquake. On January 12, 2010, a catastrophic 7.0 magnitude quake struck just 16 miles west of Port-au-Prince. It hit one of the most densely populated, vulnerable cities in the world. The shaking felt like the entire world was being torn apart. For Haitians, it was pure, unimaginable terror with no warning. The immediate aftermath was absolute chaos. Buildings crumbled like sand, homes, hospitals, schools, presidential palace. They pancaked, trapping tens of thousands. The country's infrastructure was erased in minutes, roads blocked with rubble, communication lines dead, no way to get help to those who desperately needed it. The human cost was staggering. Official figures vary. The Haitian government reported upwards of 220,000 dead, 300,000 injured, over 1.5 million left homeless, forced to live in makeshift camps with little to no resources. The scale of loss is almost impossible to comprehend. Coming in at number 9, we go back in time to 1737 to a disaster shrouded in history, the Calcutta Cyclone. On October 11, 1737, a monstrous cyclone slammed into the Bay of Bengal, making a direct hit on the bustling port of Calcutta. This wasn't just a storm. It was talked about for centuries. Accounts call it almost biblical. The most terrifying aspect, the storm surge. Imagine a wall of water reportedly 40 feet high. That wave surged up the Hooghly River, engulfing low-lying areas and swallowing entire villages. People had no time to reach higher ground. The flood washed away everything. The port of Calcutta was utterly annihilated. Records claim over 20,000 ships were destroyed, estimated 300,000 fatalities. Most deaths came from the storm surge and flooding. The 1737 Calcutta cyclone shows the deadly power of coastal storms before modern warnings. For number 8, an event that literally changed the world's climate, the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora. Located in what is now Indonesia, exploded in April 1815, the most powerful volcanic eruption in recorded human history. The blast was heard over 1,600 miles away. It registered a 7 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index, second highest possible. This was a planetary-scale event. Immediate effects were catastrophic. The volcano ejected rock ash gas into the atmosphere. Pyroclastic flows superheated avalanches of gas and volcanic matter, raced down the mountainside at hundreds of miles per hour, incinerating everything in their path. The entire island of Sumbawa was devastated. About 11,000 people were killed, directly burned by the flows buried under feet of ash. But direct deaths were just the beginning. The eruption column shot ash and sulfur dioxide 25+ miles high into the stratosphere. A massive aerosol cloud spread globally, creating a volcanic winter. It blocked sunlight, causing global temperatures to drop. 1816 became the year without a summer. Bizarre, extreme weather hit worldwide. This climate chaos caused massive secondary deaths. In the northern hemisphere, crops failed on an epic scale. Europe, North America, summer frosts, snowfalls leading to widespread famine, food riots. Total estimated deaths, at least 71,000, possibly higher. At number 7 is a disaster many of us watched live on TV. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. On December 26, 2004, a massive undersea earthquake, magnitude 9.1, struck off the west coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. It was the third largest quake recorded on seismographs. It was so powerful it made the entire planet vibrate by about 1 centimeter. It ruptured a fault line over 900 miles long. The earthquake was only the trigger. It violently displaced huge volumes of water in the Indian Ocean, creating a series of massive tsunami waves. The waves raced across the ocean like jetliners, over 500 miles per hour, In the deep ocean, they were barely noticeable, but approaching shallow coasts, they grew into monstrous walls of water, some over 100 feet high. Devastation was almost instantaneous and widespread. The tsunami slammed into coastlines of 14 countries: Indonesia, Thailand, India, Somalia. The human toll was heartbreaking. An estimated 230,000 people were killed, making it one of the deadliest disasters in modern history. Now for number 6, we have the 1976 Tangshan earthquake, an event that represents one of the greatest losses of life from an earthquake in the 20th century. At 3:42 a.m. on July 28, 1976, a massive earthquake estimated at a magnitude of 7.6 struck the city of Tangshan in northeastern China. Tangshan was a major industrial city with over 1 million residents, and almost all of them were asleep in their beds when the disaster hit. The timing could not have been worse. The shaking was so intense that 85% of the buildings in Tangshan collapsed almost instantly. These were unreinforced brick buildings that stood no chance against the violent ground motion. The city was flattened in less than 20 seconds, a complete structural failure on a citywide scale. The official death toll released by the Chinese government was 242,769 people. Official death toll, 242,769, with another 164,000 severely injured. However, many experts and internal documents suggest the actual number of fatalities was far higher, possibly reaching as much as 655,000. The aftermath was a scene from hell. The city was cut off from the outside world. Electricity, water, communication, transportation. Survivors had to dig through the rubble with their bare hands, desperately trying to find their loved ones. The story of Tangshan, a city that was literally erased and then rebuilt from scratch, is a somber reminder of both nature's power and human resilience, earning its place at number 6. Cracking the top 5, we have another monster cyclone from India, the 1839 Coringa cyclone. On November 25, 1839, a colossal cyclone made landfall at the port city of Coringa, on the southeastern coast of India. Coringa was a bustling port town, a critical center for shipbuilding and trade. Its low-lying delta location made it incredibly vulnerable to the fury of the Bay of Bengal. Similar to the Calcutta cyclone we discussed earlier, the most destructive element was a massive storm surge. Historical accounts describe a gigantic wave, estimated to be around 40 feet high, that completely inundated the city and surrounding areas. This wall of water swept inland with incredible force, destroying everything in its path. The entire port was submerged, there was nowhere for the water to go and nowhere for people to run. The destruction was absolute. The cyclone wiped the city of Coringa off the map. It's reported that around 20,000 vessels of all sizes anchored in the harbor were destroyed. The surge carried ships miles inland, leaving them wrecked in fields and villages. The city's role as a port was completely and permanently erased by this single event. It is estimated that approximately 300,000 people were killed by the storm. At number 5, it serves as a powerful lesson in coastal vulnerability and repeated blows from nature. At number 4 is the deadliest tropical cyclone ever recorded, and a disaster that had massive political consequences, the 1970 Bhola cyclone. On November 12, 1970, this incredibly powerful storm made landfall on the coast of what was then East Pakistan, now modern-day Bangladesh. The region is a massive, low-lying river delta, making it one of the most vulnerable places on Earth to storm surges. The Bhola cyclone generated a storm surge that was almost beyond belief, with some estimates putting it as high as 33 feet. This monumental wall of water surged across the flat, densely populated islands of the Ganges Delta. There were no natural barriers to stop it. The water swept over entire islands, submerging them completely. People clung to trees or rooftops, but for hundreds of thousands, there was simply no escape. The force of the water was overwhelming. The devastation was total. Entire villages disappeared without a trace. The storm destroyed crops. The storm killed livestock. The storm contaminated freshwater supplies with salt, leading to a secondary crisis of famine leading to disease outbreaks. The infrastructure was completely wiped out, making rescue and relief efforts incredibly difficult. It was a scene of utter desolation, a landscape of death and destruction as far as the eye could see. The death toll is what makes the Bhola cyclone a historic tragedy. Death toll, 300,000, 500,000. While exact numbers are impossible to know, it is estimated that between 300,000 and 500,000 people lost their lives, the vast majority from drowning in the storm surge. The Bhola cyclone had a massive political fallout. The government in West Pakistan was heavily criticized for its slow and inadequate response to the crisis in East Pakistan. This outrage fueled the growing Bengali nationalist movement, which ultimately led to the Bangladesh Liberation War and the creation of the independent nation of Bangladesh the following year. Number 4 isn't just a story of a storm, it's the story of a disaster that helped create a new country. We've now reached our top 3, and at number 3 is the deadliest earthquake in recorded history, the 1556 Shaanxi earthquake. This cataclysmic event occurred on January 23, 1556, in the Shaanxi province of Ming Dynasty, China. While its magnitude is estimated to have been around 8.0, its devastating impact was less about the raw power and more about where and how it struck. The epicenter was in the Los Plateau, a region famous for its soil, which is a fine, silty sediment deposited by wind. For centuries, millions had carved homes into the soft cliffs of the plateau. These artificial caves, known as yaodongs, were cheap to create and provided insulation from the heat and cold. However, they were also incredibly unstable and offered zero protection against an earthquake. When the earthquake hit in the middle of the night, it was a death sentence for the people living in these cave dwellings. The violent shaking caused the lowest cliffs to collapse and liquefy, burying entire villages in an instant. The yaodongs didn't just crumble, they imploded, trapping and crushing everyone inside. There was no chance of escape. The scale of the destruction was immense. An area over 520 miles wide was affected. It is estimated that the Shaanxi earthquake killed approximately 830,000 people. It represents the single largest loss of life from any earthquake in history. Our runner-up for the deadliest disaster ever at number 2 is the 1887 Yellow River flood, the Yellow River Huang. He often called China's sorrow, long tragic history of devastating floods. The river carries massive silt builds up the riverbed over time. To contain it, people built dikes levees along its banks for centuries. These defenses were only temporary against the river's power. In September 1887, after days of extremely heavy rain, the Yellow River swelled to dangerous levels. Dikes near Zhengzhou and Henan province, neglected and worn, could no longer hold back the torrent. On September 28, the levees broke. Not a leak, a catastrophic failure. A massive wall of water burst from the channel, spread across the flat plains of central China. The flood was almost biblical in scale. Because the riverbed had risen from silt deposits, the water didn't just flood nearby areas. It completely changed course, carving a new path to the sea. It inundated about 50,000 square miles, roughly the size of England. It submerged hundreds of towns, thousands of villages across several provinces. The human cost was beyond comprehension. Floodwaters destroyed all the farmland, wiping out the autumn harvest. This caused a massive famine that starved hundreds of thousands. Stagnant water bred disease. Cholera, typhoid, triggering deadly epidemics. Conservative estimates put deaths between 900,000 and 2 million. A stark reminder of rivers' destructive power, securing its spot as the second deadliest disaster ever. And here it is, the number 1 deadliest disaster in all of recorded human history, the 1931 China floods. This wasn't a single event, but a series of catastrophic floods across central China. It was a perfect storm of environmental and meteorological factors that led to a tragedy almost impossible to imagine. It began with a prolonged drought in the late 1920s, then a winter of record-breaking snowfall. Spring of 1931, the massive snowpack began to melt, and China entered extreme cyclonic activity. June to August, an unprecedented number of cyclones, 7 in July alone. Torrential non-stop rainfall overwhelmed China's 3 greatest rivers. Yangtze, Yellow, Huai dikes and dams began to fail one by one. The result, the largest and most devastating flood in human history. The Yangtze alone flooded 70,000 square miles, an area the size of Washington state. In places, water rose 50 feet above normal. Floodwaters lingered for months, turning the central plain into an inland sea. Wuhan, a major hub, was underwater for nearly 4 months. Immediate drowning deaths were estimated around 145,000 people. But that was only the start. Farmland was destroyed, leading to famine of unimaginable proportions. People were forced to eat tree bark, weeds, and whatever they could find. Then came disease. Epidemics of cholera, typhoid, and dysentery exploded. The combination of drowning, starvation, and disease created a truly staggering death toll. Credible estimates, between 1 million and 4 million people. 4 million lives. The 1931 China floods, the single deadliest natural disaster ever recorded. So there you have it, the 10 deadliest disasters in recorded history. From earthquakes that flattened cities to floods that created inland seas, the sheer power of our planet is absolutely insane. And seeing those numbers, especially for the China floods, where up to 4 million people died, it's just hard to wrap your head around. It really puts into perspective how fragile everything we build actually is. These aren't just stories, they are crucial lessons written in the most tragic way possible. What's crazy is that with today's technology, like early warning systems and better building codes, the 2004 tsunami led to a whole new warning system that has already saved lives. We're literally learning from these past tragedies to build a safer future, which is pretty incredible. It shows that even in the face of such overwhelming destruction, we can find ways to adapt and protect each other better next time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was a heavy one, but it's important to remember these events and honor the millions of lives that were lost. If you learned something today, hit that subscribe button, and let us know in the comments which of these disasters shocked you the most. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.